The Battle of Hoth has for a long time been my favorite battle in all of Star Wars, and as such, a lot of the sets based off of Hoth are some of my favorite sets of all time. And so in this video, I'm going to be ranking every one of the 34 sets that LEGO has ever made based off of Hoth as of late 2023. 34 is a lot, so without further ado, let's get into this. Now, as is tradition on this channel, at the bottom of every tier list goes the First Order ATST. I know this is not a Hoth set, but it is just that bad that even though it's not a Hoth set, it still gets to be at the bottom of the Hoth list. It's so bad, in fact, that it doesn't even deserve to be displayed in normal colors. It should be displayed in reverse colors. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yeah, stupid ATST. But moving on to the actual tier list, we've got the Hoth minifigure pack at the bottom, because of course this had to go at the bottom. I mean, it's pretty evident from the fact that you can still find this at clearance on LEGO stores that it's not very popular. I mean, I don't really think that anybody really wanted this. It's not a bad set. It's got decent figs, and I mean, the build does look pretty bad, but it's a minifig pack. Like, it's kind of sad that it's been so unpopular, but at the same time I completely understand it because I'm not into this set at all, so it just had to go at the bottom. And speaking of things that have to go at the bottom, I've got the Junior Snowspeeder up next. And there's not much else to say about this other than it's the Junior Snowspeeder. Where else do you think I could have put it? I mean, there's not much to say about this other than if you don't own it, don't buy it. And if you own it, I'm sorry. The next one on the list, though, isn't actually that bad. This is the Hoth Planet set from 2013. I mean, it's a planet set, like, it also kind of had to go at the bottom because there's not much to say about these other than it's got a decent minifigure and a neat looking mini scale snowspeeder, and the print on the Hoth planet looks good. So yeah, it's a good set, but like, it's not as good as some of the other things coming up. Which leads us to the next one coming up, that is the Snowtrooper Battle Pack from 2010. I mean, all things considered, it's a pretty okay battle pack. Like, really the only things that you can army build are the snowtroopers. You don't really want to army build your AT-AT pilots or your General Veers, but it's got a nice little snowbank build with a missile launcher and a speeder, of course, which is always nice, a pretty big staple of battle packs. But yeah, it's a decent battle pack, but it's not really the greatest as a battle pack just because of the AT-AT driver and the named character. One that is pretty decent, at least in concept, is the 75239 Hoth Action Pack. Now, I think that this was such a cool concept. I know that a lot of people didn't really like it that much, but I personally wish that LEGO had pursued these more than just 1 year, because this is great for kids, man. I know they didn't sell that well, and I didn't buy any personally because I'm an adult and this is more targeted at kids. But I mean, this just looks awesome. I would have loved to have something like this way back when I was growing up and getting into LEGO Star Wars, because it's a pretty neat concept. But of course, these two sets had to be right next to each other. Now, this one went above the other one just because it's bigger, it's got more minifigures, more play features, but I just really like the concept. Again, I know it's not the greatest thing to a lot of people, but I think it was a neat idea, and I still wish that LEGO had pursued it more. But yeah, this is the next one, and I think it's a little bit underrated, and that's coming from the guy putting it near the bottom of the list, so maybe I shouldn't even say anything about this at all. So I won't. I'll just move on to the next one, which is the original Snowspeeder from 1999. Now, fun fact, this is the only Snowspeeder ever to come in the accurate gray color, and this was a pretty good set, especially for the time. It's got a pretty good figure selection, pretty decent snowspeeder build. They're not that complex, so it's kind of hard to mess up even way back in those early days. And it's got a little turret off to the side. It's not a bad set, and I think it has a lot of merit, and we gotta recognize it for what it's got because it's a pretty good set, all things considered. Now, one that in hindsight maybe I should have put below that snowspeeder is the Hoth medical chamber. Again, not a bad set, just not the greatest set out there. I've never really personally been a fan of these diorama types of builds. I mean, they're great playsets, but I've always loved the ships more, and I don't know, I looking at it, I might want to pick this up actually just for that medical droid, because I do not own a medical droid, which kind of a staple in Star Wars. Not really, but it would be nice to have one. Anyways, Hoth medical chamber. Then coming up next is the Snow Speeder Microfighter. It's Microfighter, there's not much to say about it other than that minifigure had a dang awesome helmet print. Like, that's a really cool helmet print. And it's just a Microfighter. I mean, I think it's better than some of the sets that I've put on this list so far just because it's more updated, it's got a classier figure, and you know, it's a ship. Like I said, I don't really like the diorama types of things like the medical chamber that we just looked at, but it's also just a Microfighter. And then the next one is also just a Microfighter. Not really much to say about it other than, yeah, it's a Microfighter, it's a decent Microfighter, and I'm just gonna kind of speed run through this one because it's just a Microfighter. And the next one is also another Microfighter. I just kind of put all the Microfighters together because they're all basically the same thing, just slightly different vehicles, and I don't know, there's not really much to say about them. This one made it higher up than the other two just because it's a versus battle Microfighter, and it's a little bit bigger, got more playability since it is versus, but that Tauntaun also looks really, really weird. But let's just move on past the Microfighters because there are some much better things to talk about on this list. One of those more exciting things is the 2004 Snow Speeder. Now, this one is pretty much the exact same concept as the original 1999 one, just a little bit more updated, got better piece usage, and the same minifigure selection with a little side build off to the side, so they're really, really similar. This one just goes above it, obviously, because it is more updated and it looks a lot better. And speaking of looking a lot better, next up we've got the 2014 Snow Speeder. This one is much better than that 2004 one. It looks really dang good. I mean, it's got lots of sticker detail, and obviously this is in the first year that they integrated spring-loaded shooters into things. It's got a snowtrooper actually to go against the Snow Speeder, which is nice, a little bit of extra playability. And yeah, this set just looks really great, and plus it's from 2014, which in my opinion is the best year for LEGO Star Wars ever. Then next up, I've got the original Hoth Rebel Trooper Battle Pack, and obviously it's a similar concept from the bottom of the list that we saw earlier, but this one is just done so much better. Maybe it's just because it's nostalgia or something, but it's a much better set. It's got a pretty neat speeder that I don't think we ever saw in Star Wars, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a really good build and a great figure selection, and it's all around a pretty good battle pack. And next up, I've got the 20th anniversary Snow Speeder, and this one is definitely a very similar concept to the 2004 and 1999 one that we've already seen earlier, but it's got a similar design to the 2014 one, so it's combining the best of both worlds, I guess you could say, although it doesn't have a snowtrooper to go against it. However, it is a really good design, as they all are nowadays. LEGO Star Wars has just gotten pretty good at being good, but it's a solid set for sure, and I think it deserves a spot on the list. What maybe doesn't deserve its spot on the list, though, is the original UCS Snow Speeder. Now, it is a UCS set, it is pretty old, so I had to give it a little bit of slack, and I had to put it a little bit higher because of that UCS label. But I mean, it just looks a little bit weird. It doesn't use the most updated pieces, which obviously it's from a long time ago, so it couldn't use the most updated pieces that we have now. But it just doesn't look that great, especially when compared to the new UCS Snowspeeder. It's got a lot of studs and a little bit of weird slope usage, so it's still pretty good, especially for the time. If you own this set, then good for you. It's a nice looking set, but not my personal favorite for sure. Now, this next one isn't a personal favorite of mine, but it is still pretty good looking. I mean, this is a pretty decent looking ATST, and I know a lot of people maybe don't like it the most because it does have the longer legs and the smaller head, which is just because it's a snow ATST, if you get what I mean. I put snow in air quotations right there, but you couldn't see that because this is a video and I'm not filming in my face. But it is a pretty good ATST, and I do really like that probe droid that it comes with. That is probably the best probe droid design. Well, it is the best probe droid design that we've ever had, and that's honestly probably my favorite thing about this set, is that probe droid. Now, coming up just ahead of this ATST is the Snowtrooper Battle Pack from the same year. I put this one above the ATST because it's just not my favorite ATST design, even though it is still pretty good. But this is my favorite Snowtrooper Battle Pack design. However, that doesn't really mean that I like it that much. I've never really understood army building snowtroopers, since they're such a niche trooper in universe. Like, you're not going to see tons of snowtroopers out and about unless you're in a very snowy area. I would always much rather just build stormtroopers or death troopers or something. So, I mean, it's a good battle pack for what it is, for sure, but I don't know, snowtroopers as a battle pack, not really my favorite concept. One concept, however, that I did like is this Hoth turret from way back when. It was a pretty simplistic build, just a turret with 5 minifigures. You got Han Solo, 2 Rebel Troopers, and 2 Snowtroopers, and a little snowbank there, and it came with the Tauntaun too, which is pretty great. But I think that this is a great concept. It's just nothing too much going on, nothing too crazy, but still enough that you can have a great imaginative play session if you're a kid, and you know, if you're building a Hoth mock as an adult or whatever, it looks pretty great. And that's why I was glad that they revisited this concept again in either 2015 or 16. That's box art right there, was in both 2015 and 2016. But again, this one is kind of the same concept, and obviously it's next on the list because I'm talking about it right now. But I just kind of had to put these two sets right next to each other because they're almost the exact same thing, just one is a little bit more updated with better figures and more sticker detail, and the snowbank looks a little bit better, but they're both great sets for what they are. Nothing much to say about them other than it's nice that they exist, because I do think that they look good. And another set that I think looks pretty good is the original AT-AT Walker from way back in 2002, before I was born. I mean, especially for 2002, this looks really good. Like, from the outside at least, looking on it, it looks like it could stand up to modern standards pretty well. It's got amazing shaping and great detail, and I think that this is actually a really good AT-AT, especially just knowing that it is from 2002, at the very beginning of Star Wars. It came out the same year that this thing did, and that just blows my mind because this thing looks so much better. It's got some great playability too, but it's not as good as the other AT-ATs coming up, of course. And then coming up next on the list is the newer UCS Snowspeeder from 2017, I believe. This one is actually really good. I love the updated parts that they've got on this one. The piece usage and some of the building techniques are great, especially on that front section, and I gotta say, my favorite part about this one is probably that windshield. It looks so fantastic, so beautiful, and of course it's got those two pretty nice minifigs too, but Yeah, UCS Snowspeeder. This is a pretty great set, although I've never been a fan of oversized UCS builds. Like, I don't really like the UCS Luke Sandspeed or this UCS Snowspeeder that much. I'm just not a fan of the super big oversized UCS builds, which, despite this being a great set, I just couldn't put it any higher up on the list for that reason. One set that I absolutely did not mind putting pretty high up on this list is the Wampa Cave. I got this set for my 9th birthday and I really liked it. It's got some great playability, and that Snowspeeder design is probably the best Snowspeeder design that they've had, and they kind of used this same design in a lot of different sets, just slight variations, but this is one of those slight variations that was really good, and this set just had a lot to offer. The cave, it's not that big, but it doesn't really need to be. You got everything that you need. You got the rotting carcasses on the floor, and you got loot hanging from the ceiling, and you got the lightsaber shooting mechanism. This was a great set, and that Snowspeeder just makes it all the better. Now, I'll be honest, I'm pretty surprised that I ended up putting this one so far up on the list, because to my eyes, it just looks so ugly, but granted, it was 2004, and this objectively is pretty good. I mean, not by today's standards at all, but at the time, it was some huge advancements in LEGO Millennium Falcons, because that original one from a few years prior just did not look good, but this one really brought it. It made so many improvements to the Falcon design, and we still use a lot of the same skeleton structural types of things for the Falcons today, like the 2019 one. This one just really set a great precedent for all future Millennium Falcons, and because of that, I kind of had to put it up a little bit higher because it deserves recognition for what it's done for modern LEGO Star Wars. And then up next is another one that I actually really loved as a kid. This is the 2013 Battle of Hoth. This was kind of like a scaled down version of the UCS Hoth set. It just had tons of stuff going on, lots of playability. You got 2 Imperial vehicles, a Rebel turret, a Snowspeeder, a Tauntaun, a probe droid, and a snowbank with a big old gun on it. It was pretty fun for me as a kid to play around with it, and I also do like that Tauntaun a lot. But this is just a good set. You know, if those Snowtrooper minifigures were a little bit better looking, more akin to the 2014 ones, maybe this one could have gone up higher, but this is a pretty dang good playset. And now, I guess that when I said that probe droid in the ATST was the best probe droid that we'd ever had, I was excluding this one because this is a really good looking probe droid. Obviously, they can make it look a lot better because it's a lot bigger, they got a bigger scale to work with, but this is just such a fantastic display piece. Looking at it now, I'm kind of wanting to go out and pick it up somewhere, but this is fantastic looking. It's got so many great techniques, and it just looks really, really good. I highly recommend this as a display piece because it's probably the second best display piece on this list. But then next up, we've got the 2010 AT-AT Walker. This one always gave me green eyes as a kid. I eventually got the 2014 one, but this one was the original one that I saw and really, really wanted because, I mean, it's an AT-AT. I loved AT-ATs. I still love AT-ATs. This one even had a door that opened up properly like it does in Universe, and again, this one has another little side Rebel cannon thing. It's an all-around pretty good set, and it's got some great figures. I know it's probably not the most structurally sound because, you know, it's 2010, but it looks pretty good for 2010, and nostalgia vibes, and probably for a lot of you guys too, nostalgia if you're older than me and are watching this. It's a good set. And then I'm sure that this next one gives a lot of you older guys out there watching this some pretty big nostalgia vibes. This is the 7666 Hoth Rebel Base. Again, they're using that awesome Snowspeeder design that I just really like. That's just such a good shape for the Snowspeeder. And it's got the turret, and I believe that this is the first time we ever saw the doors in Hoth set. It's got your 2 snow troopers, your 2 pilots, your 2 rebel troopers, and then a K3PO in there for good measure. But this is a pretty good, fun looking playset. Like, if I had this one and then an AT-AT to go with it, you bet that I would be playing with them all the time, even probably as an adult, because it is a pretty good looking set. But next up, I've got the motorized AT-AT Walker. Now, all things considered, this is incredibly ugly. It is a very, very ugly set, but it's motorized. Like, how much cooler than that can you get? That motorized feature rocketed this to super high up on the list, because without it, it couldn't go any higher than like number 2 of the worst ones, because it is pretty atrocious looking. But man, to think about having a motorized AT-AT that walks by itself, that's pretty dang cool. That would have been the funnest thing as a kid. And now it's time to generate a whole bunch of comments telling me that I'm an idiot for putting this so high up on the list. I think that this set gets way too much hate. I really like this set. I always thought that it was so cool as a kid. I would daydream about it, and I mean, I still don't own it, so I guess I'm still daydreaming about it, but I think that this is just such a cool set. It's got so much packed into it. I can understand why it gets the hate, because a lot of people didn't like that it had the UCS label on it. I mean, I'm sure that if Lego had the term Master Series coined back then, they would have put this as a Master Builder Series. But I think that the hate that this gets is so undeserved. It is really a fun set. It's just got so much to it, and I mean, it's a pretty awesome thing for sure. Like, just the amount of play packed into this is insane, and it's got to go pretty high up on the list because it's awesome. Now, this 2014 AT-AT is maybe one of my all-time favorite sets ever. It's got so much nostalgia packed into it for me. And really, I feel like the only thing it's lacking is more of an interior. But everything else about the set is so awesome looking. I mean, it's just a 2014 set too. 2014 is my all-time favorite year for Lego Star Wars. Like, this is a great set, and it finally introduced some new snowtrooper molds that look amazing, and I'm glad that they're still using those to this day. It's got the Commander Snowtrooper, excuse me, as well, which is a pretty awesome figure. I love this set, and I'm surprised that it honestly isn't worth more, because I think it's just such a stellar set, and I highly recommend this one for sure. Best play set AT-AT, according to my nostalgia, but not according to objectivity, which I'm trying to get this list based on more or less. And then here at number 3, I've got what I think is probably more of an obscure one. Like, honestly, I forget that this exists all the time, but when I do remember that it exists, I am always amazed by how good it is. Like, it obviously isn't a display set by any stretch of the imagination. It is pure play, and boy, does this thing pack the play. This has like everything that Echo Base has, and of course you got the Snowtroopers just for the extra feature. This is a great Echo Base, a great Hoth set, the 3rd best Hoth set in my opinion. I can't believe that I put it ahead of the 2014 AT-AT, but this just conceptually is so fantastic that it had to go this high. And then I'm pretty sure that you guys can figure out what the last 2 sets are. Of course, at number 2, we've got the 2020 Playscale AT-AT. Objectively, this is absolutely the best Playscale AT-AT that they've ever made. It's got such amazing shaping. It's got so much detail on it, and the figure selection is pretty great. The interior is awesome. It incorporates that speeder feature again from the original AT-AT that Lego made. It's a really good AT-AT, guys. It's so much better than the 2014 one, which pains me to say, but it's true, and I can't really deny it, because I would just be lying to myself if I was. But this one also doesn't have the nostalgia, so Ha, take that. But it is a really good set. But then, of course, as I'm sure that 100% of you saw coming, is the UCS AT-AT. It's the UCS AT-AT, guys. Like, what else could have gone at the top? Literally nothing could have gone at the top, because this is probably the best LEGO Star Wars set that LEGO has ever made, period. Hoth, or not Hoth, this is so legendary. The moment it came out, it shot up to an absolutely just legendary status in the minds of every LEGO fan, because this is an insane set. There's just nothing else to say about it other than look at it and let your jaw drop open in awe. And so, excluding polybags and promos, that is every single one of the 34 sets based off of Hoth that LEGO has ever made ranked. I appreciate you watching, especially if you made it this far into the video. And if you like this one, check out another one on the end screen now. I got more videos coming out all the time, so be sure to subscribe too and leave a comment if you disagreed with any of my rankings.